Welcome back to another episode of the Geek Whisperers. I'm Matt Brender.
I'm Amy Lewis.
And I'm John Mark Troyer.
And we are live from the vBrownBag stage at VMworld 2015. And it is exciting to have a live crowd together. We don't get to do this in person nearly enough, so it's always weird to see each other gesticulating and hanging out. But high five. All right, so we are very happy today to have the two of you from the vBrisket guys, or a couple of them. Why don't you each introduce yourselves?
Sure, I'm Jason Bailey, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I was one of the founders of the vBrisket there. So,
yeah.
John Bruscia of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania as well. Originally Chicago, Illinois, but now Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I'm also one of the founding members of vBrisket.
Yeah, and why we invited you to this stage today is to talk about the localization of community. We've talked about this in an international point of view, but Pittsburgh is not international. We all know that, but we did
Wait,
know.
what?
Yeah, I know, news for the stage here. But what we didn't realize is that brisket could be such a big deal in the quasi-Midwest. And I think you may have gone to the party, the vBrisket party, eaten some great barbecue, but if you've been paying attention to Twitter at all, you've seen some conversation about this project, and it seems like it's really taken off. So we want to explore what makes it take off, what makes local community work in some places, and maybe it wouldn't work other places, and give some advice to those that are thinking about, like, hey, how do I spin some things up locally?
Well, and I just want to back all the way up and level set us for anybody who hasn't had exposure to vBrisket. You know, how in the heck did this get started?
well, that's a really interesting question. Last year at VMworld 2014, I won a 3D printer from Data Gravity. So I loved the prize; it was awesome. But at the end of the day, I'm not gonna use it to any good for me. You know, I'm gonna make these trinkets, little Lego-looking dudes. My kids are gonna,
I feel
make
like this
some
is
stuff.
a 3D printer confessional booth.
It is.
Here are
it
the
is,
things
yeah.
I made.
So I turned that 3D printer into a smoker.
I'm sorry.
You did not.
I didn't print it, but
I was like, that's
no.
cool.
But what I did is at work, we're an architectural metal company, panel company, and design and development was looking for a 3D printer, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll buy it off you." So that's how it turned it into the smoker.
Okay, that was good. That was good. I fell for that.
So you go from 3D printer prize to a very honest assessment of the fact that, as fun as that is, it's not practical.
Absolutely.
But you're into smoking meats, so you bought the smoker. And all right, now walk us through what made vBrisket a possibility in a place when there's so many other community programs that we feel it seems like can get involved with a lot of other things.
Yeah, it was. I've smoked some meat before with little electric smoker, and I know all the hecklers in the crowd that would boo me for that. Boo!
I'm gonna
yeah.
add the soundtrack.
So you have to graduate. So
Hecklers or not, it was delicious.
Uh,
I don't heckle delicious.
It was delicious.
So it was a natural progression. You got to go to the next step. Buying that smoker, I didn't really know what I was doing at all. I smoked my first brisket. I did some pork because it's easier to do, but briskets, as all the barbecuers know, it's probably your hardest cut of meat to do.
This is not the cooking channel. Let's get to the community part. I'll get the recipe afterwards, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair.
So, I tweeted out a picture real quick. My buddy Gabe was like, "That looks great. Let's get together and eat." And I was like, "Well, let's do like a vBrisket." So it was just a joke between me and Gabe held me accountable for it and found a location for the first one, and that's where the community side of things came in.
Yeah.
John.
There's
And that's how it started.
Well, and the funniest thing, myself, Jason, and Gabe, separately actually at this point, we hadn't had the discussion together, had talked about how Pittsburgh was never able to support a V-Beers, which is something that we all had kind of tried to get started at one time or another. And actually, Mike Colson was another person who tried, even before I tried to get it started in Pittsburgh, tried to get a V-Beers started in Pittsburgh. And, when you think of Pittsburgh, I mean, we've got great beer. So having a market that, for whatever reason, couldn't support that, when Jason kind of came up with this off-the-wall idea, like, well, it should be a vBrisket. For whatever reason, that idea just stuck. And we found it as a really great forum for vendor agnostic, topics driven user communication and user discussion, which is a nice kind of change of pace from what you see in other user groups, which tend to be a little more vendor or technology centric. If at one of our first big events, Matt was great enough to kind of help out and be one of the panelists.
I was lucky to do so. I mean, you had, just to tell you what it was like being there, there's about 50 people there to eat some great barbecue, homemade.
That was the first one. Y'all had 50 people.
Yeah, that was the first cooking one. Yeah, that was the first one we cooked at. We had a few before that were just
warm ups, getting
yeah,
the
they were like
down.
more presentation, community based in like a beer pub, and we did some presentations with interactive.
How did you get the word out? Part of growing a community is back to kind of marketing 101 is kind of growing your list of people who might be interested. How did you do that?
Yeah, I think the way we did it was word of mouth within the community in Pittsburgh already with the vMug. I mean, we're not affiliated with the vMug, but everybody, we're a tight group knit of friends in Pittsburgh, and it just word of mouth and hey, send me that guy's email address that wants to come, and we just grew from there. And we have like 120 people we pull from on an email list, and we're not trying to pull people in that don't want to be there. We're not just trying to drive numbers. We're trying to get people there that want to be there for the right reasons.
We want active participants.
And I love this because it's sort of like you had a community really in some ways that was just dying for a reason to get together and somebody to kind of lead the way. And obviously I'm very pro anytime food leads the way, I certainly follow. So
Yeah, there's really something to be said that the vMug was established, but it wasn't quite. You felt like there was a gap there in just the amount of conversation that was happening. Maybe it wasn't meeting as regularly. And then you tried to subsidize with vBeers, a well-known organization in our community. It didn't quite take off for whatever reasons. And a joke and a brisket later, you have a party happening at VMworld and a pretty damn good conversation.
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind, and it's an honor to be up here, and it's almost, I know we've had this conversation. It's, we're not trying to brag about what we're doing. We just want to share what we're doing, so you can help. You can maybe do something similar. And
So, question: what in your pasts led you to have the skills, the drive? And in all seriousness, had you thrown large parties around food before? Had you done other things in your personal lives that sort of, and then you just kind of melded it together? What prepared you for it? Or did you just go for it?
I'll answer real quick for that. I'm an all-in kind of guy. If I do something, I'm just head first and dive into it and full bore. That's how I am. That's my personality, and it was the same way. And when Gabe Mentz, he's one of the other vBrisket founders. He held me accountable because you can always say, yeah, we're going to throw this vBrisket thing and get the communities together, but until he made it real by saying, hey, I got a location for it, and it was November, it got real quick. And
Yeah, part of that
and I
accountability.
never cooked for 30, 40, 50 people before, and yeah, we're still learning, man. As it goes, we're still learning as a community. And
And I was all about it because I'm Italian, and we're about feeding people, so,
Yeah.
setting up the tables, making sure there was enough food. This guy took care of all the heavy lifting, but throwing a party of that size was not foreign to me. So,
But let's actually segue to that. So how did you get involved? So I've heard Jason and Gabe. They had a good balance of inspiration, kind of that head first and just keep going, and Gabe being like, all right, let's keep us accountable. Let's put some timestamp on it.
So I'm glad you kind of segued there, and I also do want to make sure that we state everybody who is a founding member. It's myself, Jason, Gabe, and Clint Wyckoff. We couldn't do it without everybody. It is a group effort, it's funny because I'm very good friends with both Jason and Gabe, and when they were talking about this, I thought to myself, this is a really fantastic idea, and kind of going on to the whole vBeers thing. We had a lot of discussions because Jason is a vMug leader around just the idea of a more user-centric, topics-focused, user exchange type user group. And to that end, actually, not long before we kind of got the first meeting kicked off, Jason did a really great thing, and he had like we had a VMug, and he had everybody kind of just step aside, and we split into two groups. And I don't even remember what it was the validity of certification. It was something like that. Do you feel that acquiring or obtaining a certificate is valid for your career growth? And that's kind of where we got the idea to do the topic with you. It's interesting whenever you have a discussion like that, because you hear different motivations as to why somebody does or doesn't want to do it. Whether your company doesn't value it or you don't value, whatever that is. And seeing that, and really seeing, kind of selfishly seeing an opportunity to have this thing in my market that I've always wanted.
Yeah.
I wanted to jump in and give a hand, and I've made this joke. Sorry,
Yeah.
I've made this joke a few times. We needed a website and a logo, and that's way back in my history. And I jumped in and designed the cow and got the website up and everything else, and it kind of took off from there.
That's brilliant, because you brought skills that you previously had from a
Yeah.
past life, and what you also did, you saw the opportunity, and seizing that opportunity was not going and getting your VCDX, as I'm sure that would be good for you in a different way, but you saw this local opportunity to help people grow and come together.
So, on that point, how do you, and I love this kind of concept of localization, so how do you find the topics how do you determine the topics? How do you make them apply to your local area? Was it a matter of you kind of started with your own problem set, things you were interested in learning, and then you crowdsourced it? And do you find that there are Pittsburgh-specific issues? I'm kind of intrigued. Like, what are the things that fly there versus what you see kind of when you come to the national events?
Yeah, I think initially we were presenting on things that we were knowledgeable about, that we thought maybe we could help maybe the one or two people that came, and maybe not the 30 people that came. The way I look at it is you don't have to reach everybody. If you reach a few people in that audience and you help them out, you're providing a service and you're providing community there. So I think we're still learning on the fly here. This vBrisket community we're about 10 months old.
Can't believe it.
I know.
Can't believe it.
I mean,
It's amazing.
they've got swag. We don't even have swag, guys. We're terrible. Oh, yeah. I want an apron.
How do you make an apron for whispering? It's just
I don't
not as
know.
attractive.
Quiet apron.
Maybe we could have somebody like whispering to the cow, like it's lulling it.
So
It just came to me.
the swag, I mean, that brings up a question. That costs money. The reason that user groups develop the way they develop is that, things cost money. So you need a venue, and that, so you're going to have to pay. You often, do it in somebody's offices, and that works for a while, but you often need to rent a place. And then you need some food, and, that's not free either. And so you say, well, I got to bring in somebody. I got to bring in a sponsor, whether that's a reseller partner or a vendor of some sort. And the VMware user groups have always developed with that sponsorship model. Some other kinds of user groups have not, and some open source folks have not. But at the end of the day, somebody's got to pay for this. So how are you guys approaching this user-centric presentation and food gathering? Who's paying for it? I guess that's a long way of saying who's paying for it.
Yeah, it is a long way, but we'll answer that.
I wanted to give my position paper first.
I like it. Yeah, you know what? We're going after the vendors that, they're trying to get their name out there. We're straight up front with all the vendors that, we're not going to give you a sales pitch. You're not going to get your 45 minutes to tell us about your product. We're very honest with them up front. We're not going to give anybody's email away from the community and get spammed. And
There's a joke in there.
Yeah.
Spam.
Boo.
There you go.
So I think we're targeting the right companies, the startups that they just want to get their name out in Pittsburgh. Because if Pittsburgh, we don't have the SE AE combo. They're not the first group. They're not in Pittsburgh. That's their second split, third split. So that's when they're getting there. So with the sponsor, we're targeting the right sponsors just to get traction in the area, to get their name out there.
Yeah,
and they've been great. I mean, honestly, great to work with. And
the amount of support we've gotten has been fantastic. I mean, and kind of making sure that we keep to our standards and that this is for sponsorship. This is what you're getting. One, I think it's attractive from a position of, we are bringing people to the group that are going to respond to that sponsorship in the right way. See the logo, understand the support they're giving, and through the admiration for the community, as it will, the companies are going to get some drag based off of that. And truthfully, the world that it is today, if somebody wants to go out and find out about that product, name recognition, go find out. And they don't necessarily need to hear that pitch. We're adding some different value to them. Yeah. In that way.
Well, let's be selfish for a minute.
Okay.
So for the founders, how has this impacted your careers? What has this done in terms of name recognition? How has this changed your attendance at VMworld?
You ask him on stage at vBrownBag.
Are you trying to get me in trouble?
Well, because it's not your full job. So how do you bring that into balance? And also, has it opened doors? Do you get to have different conversations? Is there name recognition?
I think it would open a door for sure. I think career-wise, we're all looking to do a different journey. And honestly, one of my favorite podcasts was the Dom Delfino podcast with you guys.
Don't tell him that.
I've listened to that 2 or 3 times. Right before I came out, I listened to it again because it was a great podcast, and I've learned so much from it. So, it's opening doors for sure. My career paths, I'm looking to change it. You're going to get me in trouble, but I'm all right with it. I can handle it. I see it helping. I'm not selfishly doing it for that reason.
Yeah,
but
it's mutually beneficial.
It's mutual. Yeah, absolutely.
Wait, you're going to get in trouble? Is this going on the internet?
Nobody watches the internet.
Oh yeah, no. Okay.
This is just a private conversation.
Private
friends.
conversation with microphones and spotlights.
But John, as a private business owner in the Pittsburgh area, do you find that seeping in, or is it just kind of 2 different parts of your world?
So you actually hit on kind of both pieces, if it's fair to say that. I try to draw a clear line. Because I would be extremely hypocritical where if I truly used what the group was for my own personal gain. Now, that being said, same as the constraints I set for every other sponsor, my company, Vertex IT, I've had them, sponsor events or be a sponsor, and it's been a vehicle to fund certain things. And, I definitely have seen positive response due to that, but I want to make sure I draw that clear line.
Yeah, no, it sounds like you've got that compartmentalized appropriately, and as we always admit, honestly, at Geek Whisperers, we do, in fact, do acts of marketing now and again. Yeah. And what this is just a great marketing in a secondary market that doesn't get as much attention, so for a small amount of money, you can get a huge amount of lift.
Truth. Yeah, that's the truth. Yeah.
A topic that's come up for us in private conversations and in the Geek Whisperers context here at the show this week has been learning and mentorship. How do IT pros learn about new techniques, new game, and also how do they get mentored? So in your local area, how do people learn about new stuff, new technology, better ways of doing things? Is it all informal? Are there formal ways? How do you guys learn? Is vBrisket now a part of that?
I would say yes, it is. That I feel is one of the reasons why I wanted this type of user group, because I had been a part of the VMUG previously, and I can honestly say that I was a participant and I would attend, but I didn't necessarily go as a user as much as I would have if I think the content that was being provided is what I'm seeing with what we're putting forth. Like, again, not like you said, we're not bragging.
It's different needs,
yes.
Right? Because vMUG definitely fills a need of knowledge on basic to intermediate virtualization and gives you that network. But you guys are kind of raw. Like, you're giving that, let's talk careers, let's talk multi-platforms, let's talk multiple vendors.
Well, and we tried to get, especially with that career panel discussion, for instance, we tried to get reach and diversity, right? You saw all the people you were on the board with. And from my personal experience, that helped me have a different perspective. Mike Colson, who was one of the panel members, he was my reason for finding my way to Twitter and the Geek Whisperers, as it were, and different, a really interesting perspective on growth. Especially, I'd come out of I was a admin in the federal space, and this was all like you kind of worked in this bubble. Like if it didn't have to do with the department you were working for, you kind of didn't get that wide growth. Seeing this guy that kind of had this touch in all these different areas made for learning and growth and mentorship that I'd never seen before. So,
and to get back to mentorship, John, I think we're all learning from each other. I can add value to the path I've gone down to somebody that's not been where I am. And I've looked to some of my other friends, like Gabe and like Clint. They're SEs for startups. Well, Clint's not an SE anymore, but I've learned along the way from those guys of how it's changed on the SE side role compared to the customer. And I've learned a lot from those guys. So the mentorship is happening, giving and taking.
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing when you can both teach people the things that you've learned and show them how you've gone down this path, because we all have unique zigs and zags in our path, but also at the same time absorb some of their story. And the compliment is just amazing. It makes us all better. So, Geek Whisperers?
No, I was just going to say on another note, I think one of the interesting things that you all have done is your fearlessness in reaching out and engaging the community. We became aware of you really, early. I know you've reached out to a lot of different people. I just think you've made a lot of the right moves. Talk to us about that. Is that just part of that all-in personality and just, there's something to be said. I think we geeks we're the Geek Whisperers on purpose, right? We're meant to be silent and introverted in some ways, and that's a different approach.
You've obviously never spent any time with either of us. I don't know how to whisper.
Neither of you are shy.
This is your
helps,
inside voice?
Yeah, I would say we're not your prototypical geeks. I mean, we have personalities. John doesn't have an
wait.
John doesn't have an inside voice.
I do not have an inside voice.
Folks, this is the last time they'll be seen before they're clubbed on the way off the stage.
Yeah,
quietly.
I have an outgoing personality, and Matt, for example, he's pushed me to get outside of my comfort zone as a friend. Just getting to know him through the vBrisket, and I've learned from him to push myself and get up and speak, and get in front of the audience that you're not comfortable with, but go out and do it.
Gosh, this is such a theme we're hearing this week, isn't it? Like every single person is like, if you're afraid, keep going.
That's kind of a sign you should keep going. You're doing, they've got to stretch at some point. Are we doing okay on time and things like that?
Yeah, how are we, people that are in charge of things?
I think we're still good.
We'll stay here all day.
So, I got a question. One of the reasons you make a user community is so that you can have your own conversation, a practitioner-centric conversation, and in some ways protected from the vendor marketing that you get. What do, as practitioner, I guess you're kind of a reseller, right? Or
the company I work for is a reseller company. I myself am the cloud architect of that company, so I'm less
so you're the tech guy,
sales end, yeah.
And you're working at an end user organization that
I'm on the customer side.
Stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. So both of you though get inundated with. We're here at VMworld 2015. There's a whole room, giant room, very loud, full of people literally shouting. Magicians and prizes and T-shirts and
There was a magician.
There's at least
and
two.
socks.
Okay,
and
sorry.
socks. I have multiple pairs.
I just
of socks.
got very excited. I gotta go to the Solutions Exchange to see the magician.
But we work as marketers and with marketers. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on how are modern marketers communicating with you as technologists? Is it working? Is it not working? What should they be doing differently? What resonates with you? Aside from like funding vBrisket, that's one way of a modern marketer to get.
That's what every marketer should do. Right?
But what are the messaging like? Are people talking to geeks in the right way?
Yeah, I don't think you do it through email lists. I think
it's the truth.
That's a horrible way to do that. Me, myself, I'll look at. I went to the UserCon in Columbus, for example. Mm-hmm. I'm a Pittsburgh-based VMug leader, and I didn't have time to consume the UserCon in Pittsburgh because of the duties. So I went to that UserCon over there. So you see, I just lost it.
No, I just kind of love that as a best practice. I'd never
Yeah,
thought about that.
yeah.
And I wonder if anybody else has done that to go so that you can actually absorb the information since you, of course, are working.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
what that also
That's a
highlights
great
is that
idea.
when you're running these events, it's like if you're teaching a class, you're not doing the class, you're teaching it. So it's a different experience. So it's
Right.
smart to actually put yourself and empathize with your own users. So you go to Columbus and
Yeah, I consumed the product that they were giving, and it was good to see from the outside to go to another community and learn from it and see how other people do it.
I really am blown away with just that as a simple best practice, to go explore other communities, even if it seems like redundancy on its face, because maybe some of the content will be the same, but you're going to get something different. I think that's a really cool notion.
And actually, if I could just speak to the point about our marketing companies going after IT people correctly, I'm taking this on, but I'm probably going to give a really convoluted answer.
Convoluted question.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the answer is I think we all have the channels which we subscribe to, and by no way am I a marketing genius. I just know there are certain things that resonate with me as far as how I find out about new tech. Right. Like I'm more the type, and to Jason's point, not getting an email, right? It would be seeing something, reading somebody have a blogger maybe that had written about, hey, this is a new cool technology, and then myself actively going and seeking it out, right? I'm very active in that regard. Like I'm not passive and just wanting to have people like kind of barrage me with stuff.
yeah, you don't want to be spoon-fed the spam. You go and forage for something more meaty,
Right.
like brisket.
Yeah. And I don't know if that's the case, and I don't know if that's the way that everybody works, but that's me in particular. And that's one of the things we've kind of used as a reason for being like, when sponsors in the past may have just asked, hey, can we get an email list as a part of this? We've been very polite in saying, and I've said it very frankly, I believe the value for you is to put somebody at that event that can actually interface and talk with people. Your bonds will be greater, and if you have interested parties, they will seek you out. Yeah,
And to add back to the UserCon where I had my memory lock and purple screen of death.
Right contention.
You just
bro.
reset.
Blue screen of death.
Yeah, I totally reset. But I look at those vendors that are going to be there, and I'll do my due diligence on that, and look on the internet and check out their websites, and I determined which ones I want to talk to. So those are the companies that I went up and talked to. And if somebody does call me and I do know the vendor name and I'm semi-interested, even though I don't know exactly what they do, but I know a little bit, I'll give them the courtesy of a half-hour demo. But don't call me, and the slimy sales guy routine. Be real. There's some really good sales guys out here, and they build relationships with you, and those are the people that you're more than likely going to do business with, as long as you're providing a service to the company and making sure you get the right product.
Right. And John, to your point, I think what we just gleaned from the vBrisket guys is that there's actually an element of inundation that everyone wants their attention, especially as possible consumers of products. So in a sense, you get to be choosy. You know there's marketing money out there, and yeah, you'd like some of it for your project, but you get to
Right.
choose what aligns with your goals and your community's goals.
And it's amazing. We have so many sponsors lining up to host the next one. It's amazing. We're blown away by it.
It's okay to not have more words than that. It's just amazing. 'cause
it is pretty fantastic. I mean,
yeah.
How big can vBrisket get? I'm a big believer in small stages, campfires. There's something very special about having 30 or 40 people in a room.
Yeah.
But,
Right.
how
But
big
I,
can
on the
you
other
get?
hand, I think if you can scale intimacy, which I know is ridiculous, but if you're with the right people and you spread out in your tribe,
Yeah.
you can create an army of sub-tribes that all are consuming together. So
Right.
just to give two perspectives and not lead the witness too much. So back to John's question of how big
Yeah.
do you want it to be?
Yeah, we could have made it bigger than it already is in Pittsburgh, not here because we're still amazed at this because we had no idea what the heck we were doing.
Surprise!
So, yeah, surprise. We're up on the Geek Whisperers and it just got real. So, yeah, it's been an amazing.
So no arbitrary metrics in your mind. You're just like
No,
you're going with the feel.
Yeah, I would like to grow it, but we don't want to grow numbers to grow numbers. We could get beyond 40 and 50 people, but again, getting back to the email distro list that we use, I don't want to add everybody to that list. I want to add the right people to that list, and the group wants to grow it with the right people and not just grow it for
I love
getting
that
big
'cause
numbers.
I was going to ask, share us some of the feedback you've gotten from the group because clearly it sounds like it's organic and that everybody's kind of bought in. And that's a magical time.
I mean, to kind of further what Jason was saying, I think the undertone of that is, to be selective, right? I mean, we talked a couple of times during the interview here about, we feel that we're bringing the right people in that want to be involved. So growing this the right way, it has to do a lot with being selective. And one of the things that I find that I find myself doing when I talk about the group is, if somebody asks me and wants to be a part of it, I say go to vBrisket.com and sign up. I'm not going to take your email address and send you an email. No, I mean, I will if you, I don't want to, I'm not going to be like,
Yeah, you're not being a jerk about
Right.
it. You're doing it because
Right.
you want them to
Right.
put that commitment
Right.
forth, right?
Right. I mean, because honestly, as professionals, I mean, I think we all do things and see things that we want to be a part of, but the reality is you don't have the time. You maybe don't have the interest you initially thought. So just that little step to actually make it a selective subscription model, if it were, you have to actually go out and do the work to sign up. Not that it's a whole ton of work, but there's a little work behind it.
Yeah,
Makes a big difference.
To add to that, one of the first times I was presenting, jumping up in front of the crowd and talking for the first time, I had a backup and DR discussion. And it was about a half hour. I kind of practiced it 3 or 4 times, and I think I had it dialed in at about a half an hour. And one of the coolest things about the user side of it, where we're seeing it grow, was that 30 minutes turned into like an hour and 15-minute talk with interaction in the room, which was, we were blown away by that because interaction's the problem with VMUG, right? I mean, we can't get the interaction with the group. We have a hard time getting people to come up and talk for 5 or 10 or 20 minutes about an application they use to make their job better, or the VMware product line.
Well, and I just want to jump in here because I do have a little bit of experience with the food things, right? And
Absolutely.
it absolutely, as silly as it is, and we're all making jokes, and I'm in love with my apron, is I think there's something to finding a common thread. Like you said, it's almost Swiss, if you will. Like it's this
The neutrality
of it, and the fact that the passion, it taps into something else that lowers your anxiety because everybody knows how they feel about brisket and they're excited about that concept.
Yeah, no one's on the fence.
I know we've got to ask the vegetarian question, the hard-hitting question before it ends, but
Yeah.
no.
Not just yet. I've got a question for please.
Well, yeah, but that was but in all seriousness, have you found, what's the response to that in terms of the social versus the technical aspects? Because it matters that it's vBrisket. It really does. It's got a cute cow. It's food. It's accessible.
A cute cow? It's got a nose ring.
Yeah.
It's totally
It
cute.
was supposed to be like mean. It's actually funny that you mentioned that because like that whole lowering of kind of that thing that we all identify with, I think is really important because
Well, you're Italian. You get the food brings community, and I'm Southern. It's a language I speak.
We call him Johnny Foodie. I mean, that's what he does.
Yeah.
He's a foodie at heart.
And the thing of it is it's not that there's necessarily an adversarial nature or a standoffish type nature within IT, but I just think as professionals, a lot of times you may look at somebody else at an event or at something, and we naturally represent ourselves in one way or another, right? You identify with a particular technology or a technique or something of that nature, and just based off of that, without really thinking or working at it as a person, and I try to do this as much as I can, but we're all human. You find yourself maybe not bridging the gap to have the discussion with that person across the aisle. right?
You see them as competition, especially in a smaller market.
Exactly. So having that commonality where we can just kind of bring everybody together. It's like we're all people and we love beer and smoked meat. Let's get together.
Yeah, and it works in Pittsburgh.
It works, yeah.
Because we don't have good barbecue.
Yes, that is a true
So
statement.
you provide something that's a scarce resource.
It is.
It is. I mean,
is.
when people in Pittsburgh think of barbecue, they think of barbecue chicken. So,
Which is normally done in a
and
crock pot.
I never knew what good barbecue was until I went to Austin, Texas, and had Franklin's barbecue and Texas-style barbecue in Pittsburgh, and that's why it works in Pittsburgh. It wouldn't work. I don't think it would work in Austin. Who wants to go to vBrisket in Boston or Austin? Because you have all the barbecue there.
So there's something about the uniqueness and kind of that it doesn't quite fit, right?
Absolutely.
That scarcity of resources. I do want to ask one question. I don't normally do this, but since we have a longer time than normal, I want to ask a question of the Geek Whisperers. Because, occasionally we put our marketing hats on and really try to digest that in public for you. So we're hearing about a mailing list that is kept intentionally small. We are all measured, if we are reporting into marketing, on basically the quantity of our audience more than our quality. Is there room for this artisanal community targeting when we're trying to go for the numbers?
Oh, I'm going to argue with you about this one.
I love it. Yes.
So, the way I think you can structure things based on ratio. So, in my department, that's how we talk about ourselves. So, my job is to be one-to-one. I'm hand-to-hand combat. I get to know the influencer's individual. I know their cousins' names, their cats' names, their food preferences. And then other people on my team are more one-to-many. And again, so it's still artisanal, but it's a little more extended. And then we've got people who function virtually or at scale, and that's 1 to thousands. So I think it's just a matter of you can have a layered or tiered marketing approach that respects all of it. So, sure, if you have an emergency, you can eat at fast food, but it's always better to either cook yourself or find the mom and pop shop. So I think that it's not a one size fits all. I think that there is room for everything, and as a marketeer in my day job, that we're very interested in engaging these pockets of influence because enough pockets of influence makes a great whole. So a quilt approach instead of a shove it all in the blender.
Yeah. John, thoughts?
I don't do this for a living, so I'm with Amy.
You're above it now.
Wait, does that mean I get his vote? That 2 to 1?
Well, it's actually, I agree with you. That it's numbers hide great stories. And what we wanted to talk about is
Did you just say metrics are bad?
I did not. Amy Lewis, you're a liar and a thief.
Can I inject something into this conversation real quick? Because
I mean, you're
this.
What? You're the
Absolutely.
guests on our podcast?
Yeah.
That's not how this works.
So the whole last 3 weeks, we were struggling trying to pull this party off that we had hosted here. We had 100 people max buyout for the restaurant. So we're all busy out here, and you have to oversell. So I'm at that 140 number where I was thinking that that's where we're going to cut it at. So as the week goes on, we're learning. Like I said, we have no clue what we're doing with the regards to the buyout of the restaurant and such. And I have these people coming up, and they're like, "Are you part of the vBrisket?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Can we come?" And I'm like, "You know what? If you want to come and we're not loaded up, just come."
Yeah.
And I know those people are going to show up the day before, if they're coming up to me or they're sending me an email from the Eventbrite where it's sold out, and I know that they're going to come. So I'm like, why not come? Mm-hmm. So it worked out great. The numbers were great all night, and we got kind of lucky with that. But those people want to be there. So why push them away?
Respond to need. That's the
yeah. So
80% planning, 20% flexibility.
And
because
90% luck.
Everybody drops out of a party here and there. I did it this year, and so it just worked out.
Well, Amy, do you want to bring us to a wrap with your infamous question at this point?
I do. So in terms of localizing community, and since you guys are 10 months in, and if somebody else is listening and trying to build this community, what would be the one thing you tell them? Never ever do this again. Trust us. We did it. We want to spare you our pain. Make a new mistake. What would you tell them?
I don't know if I've made my worst mistake yet. So I mean,
There's
We
still
can
time.
just go with what's currently out there.
this is a good one.
It gets them every time.
You got
it's
you
the
got anything?
unicorn of podcasting.
We don't normally have two people on, so you guys can brainstorm out loud through your microphone with each
Yeah,
other.
this is.
Yeah, or what would you do differently if you had to draw the last 9 months over again? Sooner? Anything? Something sooner? Something later?
I don't have an answer for you. I don't. I mean,
Yeah.
it's everything. Knock on wood has gone very well, and we're sitting at VMworld 2015 with the Geek Whisperers. So it's.
You mean you're not going to tell us your first idea was V eggplant, and then you just had to?
Actually, you know what? No, I'm willing to
Oh
share.
wait, we
Yeah,
do
I'm
have
willing.
one.
I you
that was
did.
the
It's
thing.
bad.
You
It's
triggered
bad.
it.
That is
You
right.
triggered it. Okay, so this is not something so much to do, or not to do, but to do rather, right? So being that I in the group, I'm the one with the background in art, and I was working with these guys on some branding and some logos. I put together some comps and I sent them over, and one of my early ones had the tagline "Taste the Virtualization," and it got shot down roundly.
Oh, I hated it.
And we're better
Hated
for
it.
it. We're better for it. So my advice would be open to collaboration and also to critique. And that's also where the nose ring came from, because the original icon logo did not have the nose ring. And
That's all I brought to the
Yeah.
logo was the nose ring.
I brought the nose
say-
ring.
I don't have that
and say
skill
get rid
set.
of taste the
Hashtag nose
virtualization.
ring.
And no taste the virtualization.
No, but what's great here, you're highlighting both your willingness to laugh at yourselves and each other.
We're good at that.
Yeah,
Yes.
and the friendship element. I think there's really something special about friends keeping each other accountable, keeping each other together, supporting each other. I know you spent over the night before I was speaking at your event, you were up almost all night cooking brisket. And 3 smokers? Yeah.
Yeah, we're up to 3 smokers now.
I love you're like, I need metrics.
Yeah.
How many pounds of brisket? How many
How many
smokers?
definitely 21 pounds. But it was one of those moments where it's such a team effort. It's really something to be a part of, and I would urge anyone listening, especially in the Pittsburgh area, you have to be a part of this group. And I look forward to it going into other places like San Francisco again in the future. But I think we're going to start bringing this to a wrap. So why don't, gentlemen, can we start with where you personally can be found, and then Jason, you can tell us where to find more about vBrisket.
I can be found at vBrisket.com, like the rest of us, and I am at John Brescia. I don't have the easiest name to spell, so that's JOHN, B as in boy, RESCIA.
I'm Jason Bailey, and you can find me at penlem166. It's a Penguin thing, Pittsburgh thing. So, and at the vbrisket.com, we have a link about, and you can ping anybody from there.
Yeah, we're looking forward to more barbecue together and many more conversations. Thank you for joining us on stage. Thank you for the audience, and this is the Geek Whisperers.